The Divine Code reading for December 22nd, pages 395 and 396. We are in the chapter Details and Examples of the Prohibition of Murder. We are in the subchapter Causing Mortal Injury and Partners in Murder. Topic number, or the second part, I should say, the second part of topic number 25. In general, if the court has already sentenced to death a Gentile within the Noahide laws, and another person kills this transgressor before the execution, he is exempt from punishment. Sifri Bamidbar 35:31. This is also clear from Rambam, Laws of Sanhedrin 14:8. It appears that this only applies specifically to the judgment of death prescribed in Torah, where the convicted Gentile violated one of the specific 7 Noahide laws. If, however, the attacker kills one who is sentenced to death only for transgressing the law of the land, he would be considered no less a murderer than one who killed a mortally injured person, for which he would be liable to capital punishment. So if a person goes to court, the person committed a violation that would be a capital offense under the Noahide law. And he went to court and was convicted for the capital offense under Noahide law, and he was sentenced to be executed for it. If someone came in at that point and killed the person, the perpetrator of the second killing would not be by a Torah violation under the prohibition against murder. Now, there could still be the courts could also say you're not allowed to do that, and therefore it could be that person that would not be under violation of the Noahide commandment of murder, the court could say that was improper to do, and could have punishment for the person. There could be consequences for the person because of the necessity of having a properly functioning court system. Or the court system could say it's allowed. That would be a case where it's not prescribed in the law, in the Torah law, but it's up to the option of the individual local court to decide how they're going to handle this kind of a situation. If they're going to allow people to just rush up and kill the convicted person, or are they going to protect the methodology of the court proceeding, that the person is executed in the proper way. There's also a possibility that this only counts whether it counts only this allowance, possible allowance, only exists in if it violates the Noahide law, or if it would be only in the case of the Noahide law against murder. That would also be a question, but the way it's being described here in the Divine Code is that it's any of the Noahide laws. Now, the court could also, in the case of the person got convicted for something that was not a Noahide law, but it was the law of the land, said that someone should be executed for something beyond the Noahide law execution. The court of the land says, or the law of the land says, that a person might be executed for some other reason. then the court system in that case would determine the method of death. So the court system could allow just anybody to randomly come up and kill the person. That would be up to the court. Or the court would say, no, you're not allowed to kill the person. But in that case, it's entirely the court that makes the decision. Because the court's making the decision in the first place that they would have an execution for such and such a crime. So on a pragmatic level, it might be the same thing, but we just have to realize we just have to know be able to distinguish between what the Noahide law is and what the court system law is, even if in practical application, it might be the same thing. It's important to know which is which. In the case of a Gentile who kills without being forced to commit the lethal action, whether he murders intentionally or with liable negligence, and this will be discussed in chapter 5, the issues of negligence. One who kills him before he has been tried in court is not liable to punishment, although it is forbidden to do so. So this is the case of a person. Okay, the first case is when the court has had its court proceeding, and okay, the one case here is the person is already been convicted in a Noahide law in a Noahide court. In this one, the earlier one also is that the question of whether or not an individual can kill a person. Okay, in yesterday's part of topic 25, the first case is a person who committed a violation other than murder. In that case, if a person is standing by, intervenes and kills the person who was a purse snatcher, that person who intervened and killed the purse snatcher would be tried for murder. In the second case, it's a person who has already been tried and sentenced to death, and someone comes and intervenes and kills the person. In that case, they shouldn't do it, but it's allowed. It's not a violation of murder. Now, in the third case, it's similar to the first case, where it's a person that sees a action or knows of an action, intervenes outside of the court system, makes his own court system on himself, which is a violation of establishing a court of law, because he can't establish himself as a court of law. It has to be done by society. But the individual decides he's going to go and kill the person. If it's a murder, if the person murdered someone, another person can come in and decide on his own to execute the person. He shouldn't do it. But if he does do it, it's not considered a Torah violation of murder for the second person to kill the first murderer. But similar to the argument with the second case, the courts can still intervene and say a person is not allowed to be a vigilante, and therefore there could be court law. There could be law of the land that says a person who is a vigilante will be punished as being a vigilante. That's up to the court, or the court system could say it's okay. To the footnote here, even one who kills unintentionally has no blood, as the verse that's in Numbers 35:27 is explained, as written by Rambam, Laws of Murderers, 5:10. This is called a Buritori, from the case of a Jew who leaves a city of refuge after he committed unintentional murder. Is considered that he has no blood. That is, there is no liability for one who kills him. And surely this applies before he arrives to the city of refuge. How much more so for one who kills a Gentile murderer for whom there is no city of refuge? So if the person committed murder, if a first person committed murder, and even if they did a liable negligence level, which is like a second, it means that the person was speeding down a residential street in a reckless manner, and it was reasonable to expect that someone might get killed, or he's driving through a park, and it's reasonable to expect that someone might get killed by that action. He would be liable even if he did not directly intend to kill someone. He operated in a manner that it was reasonable to expect that something bad would happen, and so he would be liable in that case. If another person came along and killed him, it would not be a Torah violation of murder for the second killer. Again, it could be the court system is going to intervene, but that's strictly in the Torah aspect. That person, the second killer, would not be liable for the Torah violation of the prohibition of murder. Now, concerning the city of refuge, the exception is a ger toshav Gentile who kills unintentionally any time when the Jubilee cycle is observed and cities of refuge exist in the land of Israel. So the existence of this ger toshav being able to go into a city of refuge would require the Jubilee to exist. See chapter 4 below. That's on the laws of the city of refuge, of unintentional murder and the possibility of a city of refuge. But still, the Torah law for a ger toshav is equal to a Jew who murdered unintentionally before he escaped to a city of refuge. See topics 4, chapter 4, topic 5. So now I'm not sure we're going to discuss this in another week or so when we get to chapter 4, but I'm not sure how that would directly, the blood redeemer, who has to be a direct relative, has permission to kill, and apparently if another person also killed the person, another person other than the blood redeemer killed the negligent killer, the murderer, that second killer would not be in a violation of the Torah law. Even in the time when the city refuge exists, the person has to run to the city refuge. So in the period before he runs, the blood redeemer is supposed to be, the whole idea of the law is the blood redeemer is to push the person to go to the city refuge, push him under the pain of the possibility of death if he doesn't. But a lot of this would be instituted with the court system, and the court system can make rules about how this works in addition to the Torah violation involved. Chapter number 2. Suicide and sacrificing one's life for one of the 7 Noahide commandments. Topic number 1. One who takes his own life intentionally is a murderer and is liable to punishment by God for the capital sin of murderer, as it states. That's in Genesis chapter 9, verse 5. By your own blood, by your blood of your souls I will demand. This refers to one who takes his own life, who is judged by God, and his soul is punished in Gehenna for this act of suicide. See, Kitskuni on Genesis 9:5, and the Rambam, the laws of murderers, 2, topic 2 and 3. Rashi on Genesis 9:5. See Kli Kimda Noach, chapter 3, who debates whether a court gives the death penalty to one who mortally wounds himself. So if a person would be liable obviously after he died, he would be liable for suicide by the heavenly court, by God. He would have to answer for his action by the heavenly court. That would decide his life, and the last thing he does is kill himself. We assume that he regretted killing himself. The assumption is he assumed at the point when he's dying that he regrets doing it, and therefore that can benefit him in the heavenly court. However, he would still have to answer for it. And that's got nothing to do with the earthly court. There is a more or less philosophical question. There's a rabbinic question that's asked: would such a person, let's say if he mortally wounded himself, but he's not dead yet, but he's going to die, he's expected to die, would a earthly court be able to execute him, sentence him to death, try him and execute him, which could be done, supposedly within the little period of time that the guy still has to live? Would an earthly court have jurisdiction? Now, on a practical level, this would not happen, because a person who's dying, you're supposed to leave him alone. So it's more of a theoretical question, but the question is whether or not a person is responsible for putting himself to death, and the answer would be yes. Yes, he is. With the exceptions explained in the following topics. So there are exceptions to this general rule, not to kill yourself. There are exceptions to it. Each one who is enduring great physical suffering from illness or injury and will surely die because there's no available cure for him, or one who is suffering great degradation, embarrassment, depression, is forbidden to commit suicide. See Tosafot on Tractate Bava Kama 91a, Yam Shel Shlomo Bava Kama, also 91a, chapter 56, Khatim Sofer Yeridea 326, topic 3, and Khatim Sofer Eben Ha'ezer 96. This only applies to one whose suffering is not being inflicted directly and physically by another person, but for in the case of a Gentile who is being mortally wounded by another person, see topic 2 and footnote 74. And footnote 74, that'll be in tomorrow's reading. The entire footnote 74. So it's going to go into much more detail in tomorrow's reading. But this long list of examples is actually a short. The long list of references is actually a short list compared to the amount of analysis that's gone into this by a large variety of rabbis into the question of a person killing themselves when they're in physical suffering. Topic number 2. When he was about to be caught by enemies, and it is certain that they will torture and kill him, as no natural means of being saved, is permitted to take his own life before he is attacked. As it says, but your blood of your souls I will demand. The word but implies the exclusion of a case where suicide is permissible. So there's a nuance within the grammar of this prohibition against suicide. Within the Torah, there's a lot of grammatical oddities, and everywhere there's a grammatical oddity, the question is asked, why is it written in this manner? So in this case, the word but is used to imply that there would be an exception, or there's a category where there'd be an exception. But the general rule is a person is not permitted to kill himself. And the footnote 74, which is it's a 2-page footnote, that'll be tomorrow's reading. Thank you.